Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1480B, and today's date is January 24th, 2018, and the title of the episode is, There Is No Other Choice. The time has come to have the event of events. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded a new interview with Cody Snodgrass. He's a Black Op operative. He tells all about what happened with Oklahoma City bombing, with Waco, and many other things. All you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It'll bring you right to the interview, or go to x22report.com or newsentinel.com. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You'll see the interview there. You can play it right on the site, or go to Steemit. That is steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can play the interview right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, as we can see, there is a massive scandal which is brewing at the FBI that has to do with the FISA memo, with the Uranium One deal, with the email, the Clinton email, and the pedo ring, and everything else. And what we're seeing is that these individuals, the walls are closing in around them. And coming from QAnon, Q is stating that Obama is already seeking counsel because of what is about to happen. Now, the House Intel Committee, they haven't released the memo as of yet. And the White House is saying that they don't have to approve the release of the classified memo. All the House of Representatives has to do is they have to say that, okay, it's no longer classified, and they can vote and they can release it. Trump, his administration, is saying we don't have to approve anything. They just have the right to declassify the document and release it. And that's all they really need to do. They need to let this out. And I think those people who are in government, in Congress, who are implicated in this are nervous and afraid and are trying to shut this down so this doesn't get out to the public. I mean, Adam Schiff is out there saying that the American people will not be able to understand the memo. Actually, he's calling us stupid, that we wouldn't be able to make heads or tails of it. No, what he's really saying is if it gets out there, most likely his career is finished. Maybe many other people, a lot of people are going to be going to jail. A lot of people are going to be in a lot of trouble. And we can see that many people are probably very, very nervous there, because once this gets out, it's going to lead to many other things. It's not just one thing. And it's going to have a snowball effect. And eventually, everyone's going to be looking around saying, okay, what are you up to? What are you up to? And there's going to be investigations all over the place. This is where this is really headed. This is what is called cleaning out government. Now, they started out very slowly to get the public used to the idea that there's corruption, that there's sex rings, there's pedo rings, there's corruption. And this is why Trump way back started to talk about, being spied on, about how they did things without authorization, who did it. When he was campaigning, he said Clinton would be in jail. He was laying all of this out to get everyone used to the idea. Now, of course, everyone took it as a joke. Everyone laughed like, haha, he has no proof whatsoever. He's making this stuff up. He's crazy. And it turns out that most of the stuff that he's been saying is the truth. Remember, he has this information already. He already knows what they've done. They know that he knows what they've done. That's why they want to get rid of him. That's why they want him out of the White House. This is why they're talking about a heart attack. This is why they're talking about, he could have one any minute. And it's building this up to make everyone believe that he'll just have a heart attack naturally, and we'll just have the next person come in line and be president. And we don't have to worry about him because the next person in line is Pence. And we can control him. And this brings me back to the CIA heart attack gun, which they actually have. And they use it to make it look like people have died of natural causes, which is a heart attack. And it doesn't really leave any signs that, they were murdered. And we see right now, from all this information coming out, from all the texts that are coming out with the secret society and how they wanted to get rid of Trump, all this is coming out And it's all turning out to be true. Now, the Department of Justice is moving forward. They're demanding sanctuary cities turn over law enforcement documents. Now, remember, he's been battling this because there are a lot of illegal immigrants, and I'm talking about illegal. See, the reason why they use the word illegal is because they came into this country illegally. They're not supposed to be here. They didn't go through the process that everyone else goes through. That's why they're called illegals. And of course, the corporate media doesn't want anyone to use that term because it's derogatory. But that's what happens when you cross the border. You don't go through the proper vetting and everything else. You're illegally in this country. If we decided to go to another country, you, me, or anyone else, and you hop their border and you went into their country, you're there illegally. I mean, this is how it works. But of course, they don't want to admit that this is what is happening because they need these individuals. They need them in here for a certain agenda. And that is, of course, when they were in power, when they had full power, it was about voting. It was about taking the low-level paying jobs. It was about taking Obamacare. And it was about many different things. And also when you increase the population, GDP goes up. And they were hoping that they were preparing the country for a one-world government. The U.S. was going to be brought down to a third-world nation, and the salaries were going to drop dramatically. They needed these people in here to take up the slack because they knew Americans would not take those jobs, and eventually everyone would have to lower their salaries to this level, and this is how they were going to try to do this. But, of course, this didn't work out. It doesn't mean that they've given up. They've never give up. They still think in their minds they're going to reach the goals that they set out with. They were going to have a one-world government. The United States was going to be a third-world country. They were going to get us into war. They were going to do all that, reduce the population. They still believe all of this. They're still headed in that direction. Now, the documents that they want from all these different sanctuary cities would reveal whether law enforcement agencies in these jurisdictions are illegally withholding information from U.S. immigration authorities in violation of federal law. Most sanctuary cities have passed local laws meant to stop municipal law enforcement from sharing an arrestee's immigration status with ICE. And we can see right now that Jeff Sessions from the Department of Justice, they're looking to get these records. And if they don't get these records, they will issue subpoenas for the information. They're taking it to the next level. They want to see what has been happening with these illegals and where they are, what's going on, who they are, and so on. We see the NSA, which is the National Security Agency, they did something very interesting. They have a website, and on their website, they have their mission statement. And earlier this month, the agency made a change. It removed honesty as its top priority. Now, since at least May 2016, the agency had featured honesty as the first of 4 core values listed on their website, which is nsa.gov. And it was alongside respect for the law, integrity, and transparency. The agency vowed on the site to be truthful with each other. And you can see this on the Wayback Machine. The new version of the website page has been changed. On January 12th, they removed all of it. And now the parts about honesty and the pledge to be truthful have been deleted. The agency's new top value is commitment to service, which it says means excellence in the pursuit of our critical mission. I mean, they were never honest or trustworthy or transparent anyhow. But it's very interesting that they decided to change this. Why? We see Trump is out in Switzerland. He's at the Swiss Alpine Resort of Davos with about 3,000 corporate executives. And this is where all the very, very wealthy, the elite, all meet. And the elite pay around $55,000 each to attend. It is guarded by a small army of about 4,000 Swiss troops and 1,000 police with no-fly zones imposed overhead, and they talk about how they're going to reshape the world and control us little people. And of course, Trump is now in the mix, and we're going to have to see how this all turns out. Now, out in Afghanistan, something very interesting came out with this new report, and basically the Pentagon pretty much funded Afghan forces even though they knew they were sexually abusing children. Now, a government watchdog has revealed that the Pentagon funded Afghan military and security forces knowing that some of them were sexually abusing children. The Afghan military and police were also involved in at least 75 gross human rights violations between 2010 and 2016, including murder, torture, and the U.S. government continued to fund them throughout this time. And what we're seeing from this report is that they knew about this. They knew that this was happening and they didn't care. Now, the 63-page document, parts of which were heavily redacted, maintains that the Obama administration funded the Afghan military, which it knew was committing human rights abuses, including sexual assaults on children. It was composed back in June of 2017, but was cleared for publication on January 18th. The Pentagon funded 12 Afghan units complicit in 14 human rights incidents in 2013. The Cigar report said, adding that 9 additional units received U.S. funding with some limitations on the use of money. Now, a law in the U.S. called the Leahy Law forbids the U.S. military and the State Department from funding foreign military or police units in cases where there is reliable evidence that the units have carried out gross violations of human rights. Now, that didn't stop them, because what they did is they found a legal loophole in the Department of Defense Appropriations Act, which allowed them to bypass that law and send the funds over because of national security concerns. So we can see when the U.S. is out there and they're talking about human rights and torture and all this stuff, it only matters if they're trying to remove a elected leader in a country and replace that leader with a puppet government. So if that leader, like Assad or Saddam Hussein or any Gaddafi, any of the others, they use this tactic. If it's their puppet government, they just ignore it. So basically it's a double standard, just like the Al-Qaeda, the ISIS thing, and terrorists and things like that. If they're trying to remove a government, they use Al-Qaeda or the Islamic State to do so. Once the government is removed and a puppet government is put into place, the Congress has a law that you can drone terrorists. So anyone that is trying to remove that puppet government, they call them Al-Qaeda, so they can use drones on them. Even though they're just the everyday person from that country trying to remove that puppet government, they call them Al-Qaeda. They're terrorists, and they use drones on them, just like what happened in Ukraine. Once the government was replaced with the puppet government, the U.S., the puppet government, called anyone that stood against them terrorists. It was that simple. Before, they were part of the country, living their lives, and as soon as the puppet government was put into place, and the people didn't like it, they became terrorists. This is how the U.S. works. Now, out in Syria, we can see there's a lot going on right now. And Erdogan is pushing his troops into the Kurd region. And we can see right now that the YPG, they are losing ground. And the reason why I say this is that the intelligence services of the Kurdish People's Protection Units has given the Islamic State prisoners under their control in Raqqa 3 choices: stay in prison, join their forces and the Syrian Democratic Forces, and fight with us. Because what this really means is they're running low on manpower and they need fighters to push on. And we can see that the the campaign that Turkey is waging right now is trying to thwart attempts to create a Kurdish corridor. This is what the cabal wants to do. They want to create a Kurdish region. And they're pushing this very, very hard right now. And we can see that one of the tactics of Turkey, Russia, and the United States is to get the cabal out of the Kurdish regions. And we need to understand Syrian forces are not in this region. The U.S., the cabal, controls this region with the Kurdish leaders. They're taking instructions from the cabal. And yes, there is the Syrian Democratic Forces and other forces they have within there. The Syrian army is not in there whatsoever. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to force the cabal out of this area, and they're trying to push into this area with the Syrian forces. And what's very interesting is that the Kurdish forces, they denied an agreement to allow Syrian troops into the Afrin area. And then later on, they said, no, we're going to let the Syrian army into the area. Now, once they start letting the Syrian army into this area, the Syrian army, Syria, Assad, is going to take control of the Kurdish region. And I believe this is their plan ultimately for them to do this, where they continually push and push and push and push the cabal out. The Kurdish people allow the Syrian army in. The Syrian army takes control of this region. It is a little bit at a time, which is now part of Syria, and it takes control away from the cabal. And we can see right now, pretty much this is what is happening here. And Turkey, once again, they announced that, listen, Turkey is ready to discuss the current situation and future of Syria if the U.S. drops support to the Kurdish Democratic Union Party. Now, if Trump comes out and says we no longer support them, well, for the cabal, it's game over. And he already took away the funding from the Kurdish army. I mean, this was being funded all along while Obama was in office. Trump took away the funding for the Kurdish army, for the moderate rebels, and everything else. And all he has to do is come out and say the U.S. no longer supports the Kurds, which means then Syria can come in and regain control of this region, which will then force out the cabal. And I think this is their tactic. Now, the other question is, will this work? Because we can see that the cabal, they're stubborn. They have a goal. They want Assad gone. They're going to push their agenda. We also need to remember, and this was about a year and a half ago or so, there was a tactical nuke that was snuck into Aleppo. And the whereabouts of where it is right now, we don't know. Most likely, they have it. Most likely, they might use it. And this could be a false flag attempt, or a major false flag attempt that QAnon has mentioned before. And he said that there's going to be many different attempts. And about a day or two ago, we reported that there is a chemical weapons attack in Syria. And we can see the U.S. is out there stating that this is Russia's responsibility. Now, Tillerson was out there saying that Russia is responsible for this, but he doesn't really know who really did this chemical weapons attack. He has no clue. He doesn't have any information. He's just out there blurting things out to let the cabal and the corporate media play on this and let them go off on this tangent. In the meantime, what else is happening here? While the corporate media is busy with, Russia's to blame, Russia and Syria, they're inviting the OPCW investigators to districts liberated from the militants. What do they have there? They have abandoned warehouses with chemical weapons. Now, these chemical weapons are from the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, and the moderate rebels. And Russia is trying to organize this visit to Syria to examine the chemical agents and they want a fact-finding mission so they can go to The Hague. And what's very interesting is that the U.S., remember, we reported on this, they already admitted that the terrorist groups, the moderate rebels, they were using chlorine gas and other weapons. So the whole thing is about to come down around the cabal. Now think about what is happening right now and how desperate they are going to get. We talked about Hawaii. I believe that this really did happen, that there was something headed towards Hawaii, and it was intercepted. It didn't reach the target, and that's why the missile alert actually went off. That's why they did it. And of course they had to cover it up later on to say, oh no, it was just a little accident, someone pushed a red button, but that's not how it works. Now I believe there's going to be a major false flag coming very soon, because what we're seeing is that there's an investigation going on with all these individuals. They're getting ready to release the memo. Now, if they don't release the memo, well, this is going to snowball into something even bigger than if they release the memo. And the reason why I say that is because people are then going to demand this memo be released. Because then they're going to think the government is hiding something, because they came out and they said this is so damaging, this is unbelievable, people are going to go to jail, it's going to shake the nation, and if they don't release it, people are going to be like, okay, the government can't be trusted. They're not open. This is not an open democracy. This government that is there now should be removed because they're not giving the people the truth. And we can see that these individuals are so nervous now, so worried, that they will use any type of distraction. Let's put all this in perspective. They brought down the World Trade Center. They brought it down to fit all different agendas. And this is when they were in control, when they didn't have anything to worry about. They knew eventually they'd have to go into all these countries, have regime change, because the petrodollar was being threatened, because Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, and the rest, they wanted to sell the oil not using the dollar. We know that there's other reasons why the 9/11, the World Trade Center towers came down, but we can see that they will go to any length to protect themselves and to push their agenda. I mean, look, out in Hawaii, there was a missile alert. Reports are coming in that there was something that was fired, something was intercepted. This was not something that happened by accident. The next one is going to be even bigger. The next one is going to be the event of events, because everything is closing in around them. And if this memo gets out there, if the investigations continue on, if the Department of Justice gets these records from all these different cities, if all these things happen, well, a lot of people are going to be going to jail. A lot of people are going to be on the run. They might commit suicide. And if these people do stand trial, it's going to be treason, and they're going to be executed. I mean, think about what is happening right now. They know what will happen. And while this is all happening, the country is going to be in chaos, because most of the people will probably completely freak out and break down. They will not be able to handle all of this, because when the truth comes out, the hard truth of what has really been going on, and now they've learned that they've been lied to, this is going to take a toll on the country. The country as a whole, as the economy completely falls apart, as the government falls apart, we are resetting everything. Think about this for a second. Everything will be rebooted, because most of the people in government, they will no longer be in government. The economy that we know today, will no longer exist. Everything is about to change. Think about what happened in Russia when Russia fell. The economy, the government, The Soviet Union completely broke apart. Countries were formed. I mean, think about this. Here in the United States, we might even have states that say we don't want to be part of this anymore. Texas might say, you know what? We're leaving. We're done with this. We don't know yet, but we know that we're going to be going through this gigantic reboot, not just of the economy, of everything. It's an everything reboot. Reboot the entire system. And I think from all that we're seeing, from all this information coming out, from what has been happening, this is where we are headed. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.